In the heart of the Indonesian archipelago lies Mount Tambora, an unassuming giant that once held a terrible secret. This is the story of an eruption so powerful that it changed the course of history and plunged the world into a year of darkness and despair. On April the 10th, 1815, Mount Tambora erupted with a force of nature never witnessed before by mankind, sending a plume of ash and gas high into the stratosphere and causing unprecedented destruction on a global scale. The eruption's aftermath led to what is known as the Year Without Summer. In 1816, people around the world experienced freakish weather, snow in June.
Hey, look everybody, it's snowing!
In the middle of July?
It's a miracle.
Failed harvests and a relentless, eerie cold that defied the seasons. Welcome to The Year Without Summer, the eruption of Mount Tambora. Hi, this is Geography Girl, and I hope you're doing well. Mount Tambora is a volcano in Sumbawa Island in present-day Indonesia. It erupted in 1815. It was the most destructive explosion on the Earth in the past 10,000 years. The volcano spewed 100 cubic meters of gases, dust, and rock into the atmosphere and the surrounding area. The immediate effects of the volcano resulted in mass destruction. The eruption, the flows that came from it, and the related tsunamis destroyed homes and claimed 10,000 lives. Another 80,000 would die from the disease that spread in the aftermath. The immediate impact, of course, was local devastation. The massive explosion from the eruption of Mount Tambora was one of the most powerful in recorded history, with a volcanic explosivity index of 7. The eruption killed an estimated 10,000 people, with pyroclastic flows and tsunami caused by explosion devastating local villages. The subsequent famine and disease outbreaks killed tens of thousands more, with total deaths in Indonesia alone estimated at around 71,000. The eruption caused the top of Mount Tambora to collapse, forming a caldera which is around 6 kilometers wide and 1,250 meters deep. There was a significant climatic impact with a global temperature drop, which plunged the world into a volcanic winter. The eruption injected vast amount of sulfur dioxide into the stratosphere, which converted to sulfuric acid aerosols. These aerosols reflected the sunlight. According to National Geographic, it cooled the Earth by 0.5 degrees and wreaked havoc on regional climates for a harrowing 3 years. 1816 became known as the Year Without Summer. Snow fell in June, frost occurred in July and August, and temperatures were abnormally low throughout the year. The incredible thing is that this had impacts as far-reaching as Europe. The eruption happened directly after the end of the Napoleonic Wars, which left continental Europe in destruction. As a result, Europe was hit especially hard by the 1816 year without a summer, as temperatures decreased and precipitation increased. Food became scarce and there were many riots throughout the continent. In Ireland, the declining climate led to wheat, oat and potato crops to fail, resulting in a famine. This coincided with a typhus outbreak which caused over 40,000 deaths. The eruption affected environmental conditions in the Bay of Bengal, which gave rise to the spread of Bengal cholera. The disease quickly spread, killing tens of millions of people in a global pandemic that lasted until 1823. And up in Eastern Asia and India, the monsoon season was disruptive. The Yunnan province of China endured a 3-year famine due to flooding and cold weather throughout the growing season. After the Yunnan famine, many local farmers began to grow poppies in the place of less reliable cash crops that failed. The Yunnan province became a major producer of the world's opium. There was famine and economic hardship around the world. Food prices were affected as far as America. The crop failures resulted in skyrocketing food prices. In Europe and North America, the price of grain rose dramatically and exacerbated economic hardship. The eruption triggered the Panic of 1819, which was the first major economic depression in the US. In 1819, heavy instruments in US agriculture were lost when harvests stabilized in Europe, reducing the European reliance on US grain exports. There was many social and cultural effects as well. Inflation riots became more frequent in 1816 and 18. Collectivized food riots were one of the most important forms of social protest in the 19th century in Europe. Consumers called for a market that would be protected during times of crisis. If there was even a whiff of corruption or unfair practices, the moral economy enabled the collective to take the law into their own hands. They ambushed transports and plundered warehouses, setting fairer prices for daily food. France became a centre for these riots. By 1817, raids on farms, granaries, and taking over villages became more frequent. And riots broke out across the rest of Europe, in England, Scotland, Norway, Spain, and in North Africa. In Bavaria, there was an anti-Semitic-led Hep Hep riot, which broke out in 1818, directed against the Jewish population. There were also many anti-colonial uprisings across Asia. At a political level, European governments were confronted with a wide range of challenges: political dislocations, popular disturbances, social unrest, administrative problems, economic depression and protectionism, unemployment, hunger, rioting, looting, begging, vagrancy, and large-scale emigration. The high level of anxiety created an environment that favoured conservative and repressive policies. Citizens' rights and fundamental rights were usually restricted, and liberal movements were in difficulty. However, the Hunger Years, the social unrest, the begging and the vagrancy underpinned the need for in-depth reforms in the social welfare system. The agricultural distress prompted migration, particularly in Europe. Many families relocated in search of better living conditions. In New England, for example, the snow and frozen soil disturbed the growing season well into the summer. Food prices rose dramatically, triggering a western migration of families moving towards Indiana and Illinois. There were many cultural responses too, in art and literature in particular. The bleak conditions inspired the notable works of art and literature. Mary Shelley conceived of the idea of her novel Frankenstein during the wet, ungenial summer of 1816 while staying in Switzerland. Geneva had been struck by flooding and famine, and soup kitchens were open for the poor. There is evidence of the appalling weather in the writings of the time, with Mary observing that the thunderstorms visit us at a grander and more terrific than I have ever seen before. One night in July, Mary was tasked with writing a ghost story, which took several days and one sleepless night to concoct. The result was one of the greatest works of English language fiction ever created by a man or woman in the book Frankenstein. The protagonist Victor is a scientist whose downfall is dramatized by the changing weather. The pre-monster world is the most beautiful season. It never did the fields bestow a more plentiful harvest or the vines yield a more luxuriant vintage. As the narrative becomes one of psychological terror, murder, and a global manhunt between the creature and creator, the weather rapidly worsens. Storms come and go. By the end of the novel, Victor has pursued the monster to the Arctic Circle. Almost alone at the top of the earth, Victor dies amidst an apocalyptic vision that makes the end of the world look like that of an act of weather. Nature has avenged itself. There was also a scientific and environmental impact. There was an innovation in agriculture, introducing things like crop rotations. The eruption inspired the advancements in climatic science, providing valuable data for studying the relationship between volcanic activity and climate change. And this example underscores the importance of preparedness and mitigation strategies. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you again next week.